Leo's magical acupuncture needle began to glow with power in front of Mr. Stinger's face. The slumlord, Mr. Stinger, sneered, "Get this needle out of my face. What kind of trick is this, kid?" "Why don't we find out?" Leo growled back at him. Mr. Stinger laughed. "This is ridiculous. I don't have time for games." Grand and her beautiful granddaughter Audrey were glued to the wall, staring at Leo. Audrey thought to herself, "I knew there was something special about Leo. I can't believe how strong he is. Just last night he came here with a grave injury, and he's already fighting this awful man." "This is your last chance," Leo growled. Another one of his magical acupuncture needles flew up to Mr. Stinger's face, causing him to flinch. "I'm not afraid," Mr. Stinger sneered back at Leo. But it was clear he was very afraid, because his whole body was shaking and his face was pale. Leo's needles vibrated and glowed. Leo closed his eyes, and just as he was about to unleash the full power of his needles, a man burst through Grand's front door. "Stop or I'll shoot!" Justin, the henchman of the Blademan, was standing right behind the slumlord, with a gun pointed to Mr. Stinger's head. Mr. Stinger looked between Leo and the henchman of the Blademan. "This is trouble," Mr. Stinger thought to himself. "I might be trying to scam this old lady to date Audrey, but I know better than to get mixed up with Justin and his crew." "Fine, I'll leave," Mr. Stinger screamed as he backed towards the door. "But I'll be back for your money, Gran. Pay up or let Audrey date me. That's the deal." Mr. Stinger ran out of the room and slammed the door behind him. Justin turned his focus to Leo. At the same time, Leo directed his powerful needles toward Justin. Startled at the flying needles, Justin took just a few steps backward and found himself cornered against a wall. He lowered his gun. "No need for that. Let's just have a civilized conversation." Leo noticed a tattoo on Justin's forearm. It was the same tattoo that Harley, the leader of the Blademen, had on his arm. Leo then knew that Justin was a member of the same deadly gang. "Thank you for saving me, but why should I trust you? You all want me dead. Your boss knocked me out and left me for dead," Leo growled. Justin was silent as he stared back at Leo. Justin thought to himself, "I could have told Leo if I wanted to. That was my boss's orders. But I could see that he got something special. He lives by a code to only hurt people who do harm. And even though the Blademen do the opposite of that, I can't punish him when you're protecting these two. Harley said not to do this, but I know this will help us in the long run." Justin finally opened his mouth to speak. "Please, come work for the Blademen. I see that you're a young man of great power." Looking at the needles, he added, "Name your price. We'll pay it." Leo thought to himself, "I'll never do that. I know the Blademen are bad and they terrorize the population here." Leo brought his acupuncture needles back to his side. "I will not join you. I can't be bought." "Are you sure about that?" Justin flashed Leo an enormous stack of money. Leo's eyes widened as he took in the money. Leo thought to himself, "I would really like that money, but I cannot work for the Blademen." After a long pause, Leo spat. "I won't say it again. I cannot be bought. Take your money and leave." Justin huffed out a frustrated breath and shouted, "Harley will be hearing about this. Don't you forget it." He spun around and slammed the door as he left the apartment. Gran, Audrey, and Leo were alone. Gran ran up to Leo and whispered, "How do you know the Blademen?" "They are very dangerous. He could have killed us without a thought. They're evil men, and they have no conscience." Leo thought back to meeting the Blademen in the alleyway the night before. At the same time, he hadn't known they were such powerful and dangerous men. He shook his head as if to get rid of the thought. "Don't worry yourselves about it. They won't be coming back for you. They're after me." Leo paused and thought, although they're powerful and cruel men, they did show the three of us mercy. Maybe they have more kindness than they let on. Gran let out a sigh of relief, finally relaxing now that she knew the immediate crisis had been averted. She bent over and began to clean up the shattered coffee cups from the confrontation earlier. "First Mr. Stinger? And now the Blade Men are after me? This is too much," Audrey exclaimed. She opened her mouth to speak. "Leo, help!" But before she could get the rest out, she fell to the ground. "Audrey!" Leo cried as he and Gran rushed to her side. "You have to help her!" "I can't," Leo lied, afraid of exposing his powers to this new and kind family. "But I can tell there's something different about you, Leo. Something special," Gran whispered as she pointed to his forehead. The band-aid that Leo had put over his head to cover his wound was on the ground. It must have fallen off in the fight earlier, exposing his now healed wound. Leo knew that Gran must have realized it was impossible for a normal wound to heal so quickly. Before Leo could reply, Gran continued, "I can sense you have powers, Leo. Please use your powers to save my dear granddaughter." Gran looked pleadingly at Leo. She turned to leave the room, giving Leo and Audrey privacy. Leo knelt on the ground next to Audrey and took a deep breath, reluctantly preparing his healing powers. As he held his hands over Audrey, he felt a strange sensation. It was not the usual feeling he got when he healed people. Usually he felt slightly depleted, but this was completely different. He felt a golden warmth throughout his body as he healed Audrey. Leo thought to himself, "This is strange. I usually feel weak when I'm using my powers to heal. I understand that every time I help someone, I lose a little bit of my own power. But now, with Audrey, I somehow feel even more energized when I am healing her. How is this possible?" A memory came to Leo in a flash. He thought about when his mentor had told him he was training him on Mount Rainier. "You will know your true soulmate when you find her," his mentor had told him. "True love is the source energy of all power." It was impossible. Could Audrey be Leo's soulmate? Leo thought, guiltily, about his promised engagement to the self-absorbed and power-hungry Sophia Cohen. Yes, it was true that Sophia had rejected him flat out before. However, Leo couldn't shake the feeling that he was obligated to pursue her to fulfill his mentor's wishes. In the present moment, he couldn't ignore the way his body responded to Audrey. Leo took a deep breath and opened his eyes. Audrey was staring at him, smiling. "Thank you. You healed me. I knew you were special. I feel well enough to go to school." Audrey got up and looked at Leo. "I don't know what you did, but I can't thank you enough. Let me walk you to school," Leo pleaded as he helped Audrey up. "Thank you." She continued smiling at him. Leo felt a fondness towards Audrey that had nothing to do with the sensation he got when he was healing her. Was he falling in love with Audrey? The college that Audrey attended was a short walk from Gran and Audrey's humble residence. She gave Leo a final hug and turned to walk towards the building where her class was being held. Leo was suddenly pushed from behind and he turned around in shock. "Oops, didn't see you there." A massive college student had bumped into Leo. It didn't seem like an accident to Leo. Brad Whitley was a towering college student who was glowering down at Leo. He had on a sweatshirt which had the school's water polo team logo embezzled on it. He was easily twice Leo's size. "I've never seen you here before. You look too young to be on a college campus, jerk. And besides, what are you doing with my girlfriend?" Brad pointed to Audrey, who had stopped to look at the commotion. Leo's heart sank. Of course, Audrey's boyfriend was the popular and handsome Brad Whitley. Their connection had been too good to be true. Or maybe it was just wishful thinking in Leo's head. Another student rushed by and accidentally bumped Brad's shoulder. "Watch it, jerkwad!" Brad shouted as he shoved the kid, who fell down. Leo turned to face Brad. He could handle getting shoved by a bully like Brad, but it wasn't acceptable for Brad to beat up innocent people. He puffed up his chest as he walked up to Brad. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Leo sneered as one of his needles flew out of his pocket and hovered above Brad's eye. Leo noticed that his emotions had taken control of the needles. Audrey ran back to Leo. "He's not worth it. He's a total jerk and he's not even my boyfriend. He's lying to get a reaction out of you." Leo felt a tense sense of relief, but his needle was still trained on Brad. "What are you, some kind of freak?" Brad sneered. It was clear that Brad was afraid from the way his voice trembled. "Hey, get this out of my face, or I'll really hurt you." Leo narrowed his eyes as he got the needle closer to Brad's eye. "Promise you'll leave Audrey alone? And everyone else at this school. Don't be a jerk." "Fine. I'll only stop because you're freaking me out, you weirdo." Brad backed away from the needle, but it followed him. Brad was afraid to blink. Suddenly, the needle flew back to Leo's side and safely stored it in his pocket. "Get out of here. If I hear from Audrey that you're hurting innocent students, I'll be back. And I won't be so nice next time," Leo threatened. Brad turned around and ran off the campus. Leo turned, proud, to look for Audrey. She looked pale and was swaying slightly. "Oh no," Leo worried to himself. "I just healed her this morning and felt so empowered by the healing process. How can she be so sick again? Did my healing not work?" Audrey noticed Leo looking at her with concern. "I haven't eaten since last night. After all the commotion from this morning, I guess I forgot." Leo sighed, glad that this problem was something he could solve without using his powers. He was still insecure that Audrey would like him more for his powers, instead of who he was as a person. "I'll make you some soup. I'm a great cook. I'll grab ingredients for your favorite soup while you're in school. And it will be ready by the time you're done." Audrey smiled up at Leo. His heart warmed. "You're the best, Leo." Leo watched Audrey walk into the building, and he turned on his heel to head into the market. He reached into his pockets and felt for the card the Smith family had given him earlier, which allowed him to buy anything he wanted. But the card wasn't there. Neither was the check that Dr. Kim had given him for saving a life. The Blademan must have taken his money when they knocked him out. "I don't have any money! There's no way I can make this gift and keep my promise to Audrey."